The snow was falling softly outside as I pulled up to my parents' house for Christmas dinner. My old Honda Civic looked out of place among the luxury cars parked in the driveway. My sister Jessica's new Mercedes, my brother David's Tesla, and my parents' Range Rover. For a moment I sat there, gripping the steering wheel, wondering if I should just turn around and go home. But no. This would be the last Christmas like this. Everything would change tonight. I grabbed the bottle of wine I'd brought, not the cheap kind they expected from me, but a $500 Bordeaux that would remain unappreciated, and headed inside. The front door was unlocked, and warm air carrying the scent of roasting turkey greeted me. "Oh, Olivia's here," my mother announced, her voice carrying that familiar note of disappointment. "And she's late as usual." I checked my watch. I was actually 5 minutes early, but that didn't matter in the Thompson family narrative. I was always the disappointment, the failure, the cautionary tale they loved to dissect over holiday dinners. "Still driving that old car?" David called from the living room, not bothering to look up from his phone. "You know, I could help you get a good deal on a Tesla. Well, if you could afford one." I hung up my coat and placed the wine on the kitchen counter. Mom barely glanced at it. "Oh, honey, you didn't have to bring anything. We have plenty of suitable wine." The emphasis on suitable made it clear she assumed I'd brought something from the discount shelf. I bit back a smile, remembering the wine cellar in my penthouse apartment, filled with bottles worth more than her monthly mortgage payment. Jessica swept into the kitchen, designer dress sparkling, engagement ring catching the light. "Olivia, still wearing that old sweater? I have some hand-me-downs I was going to donate, but you might want them." I looked down at my old sweater. A cashmere piece from a small Italian boutique that cost more than her entire outfit. But they didn't need to know that. Not yet. Dad emerged from his study, scotch in hand. "Well, if it isn't our little entrepreneur. How's that consulting business of yours going? Still working from coffee shops?" They all laughed, sharing knowing looks. If only they knew that my little consulting business had just closed its biggest deal yet. A $2.3 billion acquisition that would be announced tomorrow morning. "It's going fine, Dad," I said quietly, helping Mom set the table with her precious holiday china. "Fine isn't going to pay the bills," he scoffed. "Look at your siblings. David's a senior VP at 32, Jessica's marrying into the Wilson family. And you threw away a perfectly good job at Anderson and Company to follow your dreams." I had left Anderson and Company 5 years ago, tired of the corporate politics and restrictive environment. My family had been horrified walking away from a secure job with benefits to start my own business. Unthinkable. "Speaking of bills," Jessica chimed in, "did you manage to get a new apartment yet? That studio in the bad part of town must be getting old." I thought about my 5,000 square foot penthouse overlooking Central Park, with its private elevator and rooftop garden. "No," I said, still in the same place. "Olivia," Mom sighed, bringing out the turkey, "we worry about you. You're not getting any younger. Maybe it's time to admit this business experiment isn't working and get a real job again." We sat down to dinner, my family continuing their favorite pastime, critiquing my life choices. David bragged about his recent promotion, Jessica gushed about her wedding plans, and my parents beamed with pride at their successful children. Then Dad cleared his throat, swirling his scotch. "Your mother and I have been thinking. We're updating our will and, well, given your financial situation, we think it's best if we set up a trust for you. Something you can't access until you prove you can handle money responsibly." The table fell silent. Even Jessica looked uncomfortable. "You'll never amount to anything if you keep going like this," Dad continued, his words slurring slightly. "This is for your own good." I felt a calm settle over me. The moment I'd been waiting for had arrived. I reached for my bag, pulling out a thick manila envelope. "Actually, Dad," I said, my voice steady, "I think it's time we talked about net worth." The first signs of tomorrow's news were already hitting the financial websites. Soon they would understand exactly what my little consulting business had become. But first I had some papers to show them. I began to open the envelope, watching their faces. Christmas was about to get very interesting. The manila envelope landed on the dinner table with a soft thud, right next to Mom's prized turkey centerpiece. Inside were bank statements, investment portfolios, and the Wall Street Journal article set to go live at midnight. Tech consulting firm Skyward Solutions acquires global giant in $2.3 billion deal. Before you set up that trust fund, I said calmly, there's something you should know about my little business experiment. Dad scoffed, reaching for his scotch. What, did you finally make enough to move out of that studio apartment? I started laying out the papers one by one. First, the property deed to my penthouse. Actually, I own the entire building. Jessica's fork clattered onto her plate, splattering cranberry sauce on her designer dress. Next came the investment portfolio. And these are just my personal holdings, not counting the company assets. David leaned forward, his Tesla-buying smirk fading as he saw the numbers. That's impossible, he stuttered. These statements show $40 million in personal net worth, I finished for him. Well, as of this morning. Tomorrow it'll be considerably more. Mom's hands trembled as she reached for the papers. But your little consulting business. Skyward Solutions, I corrected her. The company I built from nothing while you all mocked me for working from coffee shops. We have offices in 12 countries now. Over 300 employees. You're lying, Dad said, but his voice lacked conviction. This is some kind of trick. I pulled out my phone, opening my banking app. Would you like to see the real-time numbers, Dad? Or maybe you'd prefer to wait for tomorrow's news. Jessica, always quick to sense a shift in power, tried to salvage the situation. Olivia, sweetie, you know we've always supported you. Have you? I turned to her. Was it support when you told your fiancé not to hire my firm because, and I quote, she's just playing at being a businesswoman? Her face went pale. How did you know that? Because his company hired us anyway. In fact, we're the ones who saved them from bankruptcy last year. That promotion he got? It was because of my team's restructuring plan. David jumped in, his VP confidence shaken. But you never said anything. All these years you let us think that I was a failure? I smiled. Yes, I did. Because you all showed me exactly who you were when you thought I had nothing. I stood up, walking to the kitchen where my forgotten wine bottle sat. This Bordeaux? It's worth more than those hand-me-downs you offered me, Jessica. My old sweater cost more than your engagement ring. And that studio apartment in the bad part of town? I keep it as my office, a reminder of where I started. Mom had started crying silently, mascara running down her cheeks. Dad sat frozen, the scotch forgotten in his hand. But why? Jessica whispered. Why live like you were struggling when you were actually rich? I poured myself a glass of the Bordeaux. Because money isn't everything. But since that's all this family seems to care about, I thought it was time you knew exactly what your worthless daughter is worth. I took a sip of wine, savoring both its taste and the stunned silence around the table. Oh, and Dad? About that trust fund, I think I can handle my money just fine. But thanks for your concern. The grandfather clock in the hallway struck 8, its chimes echoing through the quiet house. In 4 hours the news would break. But for now I had more revelations to share. Would anyone like to know what's happening tomorrow morning? I asked, pulling out one final document. Because this Christmas dinner is just the beginning. The Wall Street Journal article lay in the center of the dinner table, my family staring at it like it might explode. The turkey had gone cold, the expensive wine untouched except for my glass. No one was thinking about Christmas dinner anymore. $2.3 billion, David whispered, reading the article again. You're acquiring Morton Industries? But they're one of the largest tech companies in the country. I corrected, checking my watch. In about 4 hours they'll be part of Skyward Solutions. Dad had been unusually quiet, his scotch glass empty. Finally he looked up at me, something like desperation in his eyes. Why didn't you tell us? All these years we thought. You thought what you wanted to think, I said. You saw what you expected to see. The daughter who couldn't hack it in corporate America. The failure. The disappointment. We were trying to protect you, Mom interjected, dabbing at her smeared mascara. We just wanted you to have a secure future. I laughed, the sound echoing off the expensive walls of their house. The house I could have bought 100 times over. Protect me? No, you wanted to control me. To force me into your version of success. Jessica, ever the opportunist, suddenly brightened. Well, this is wonderful news. You know, Thomas's company has been looking for new tech consultants. Maybe we could. Stop, I cut her off. That's exactly why I kept this quiet. Every time someone in this family succeeds, You all swarm like vultures looking for advantages, connections, favors. I stood up, walking to the window. Outside, snow was still falling softly, covering the luxury cars in the driveway. But that's not even the biggest news of the night. There's more. David asked, his VP confidence completely shattered. I turned back to face them. Morton Industries isn't the only company I'm acquiring. Tomorrow morning, Skyward Solutions will also announce its purchase of a controlling interest in Anderson & Company. The silence was deafening. Anderson & Company, the company I'd left 5 years ago, the secure job my parents had been begging me to return to. That's where I work, David stammered. I just made senior VP. I know, I said quietly. I approved your promotion last month. Didn't you wonder why the CEO suddenly recommended you? Dad stood up so quickly his chair fell backward. You're saying, all this time I've been quietly buying up shares, positioning Skyward Solutions for this moment. By this time tomorrow, I'll own both companies. I paused, letting it sink in. Which means, David, I'm not just your sister anymore. I'm your boss. Mom started crying again, but this time I didn't feel any satisfaction. This wasn't about revenge, it was about truth. I don't want to fire anyone, I continued. I don't want to dismantle what's been built. But things will change. Real merit will matter more than family connections or office politics. I picked up my bag, gathering the documents. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have an early morning tomorrow. Lots of press conferences and paperwork when you're acquiring billion-dollar companies. Wait, Jessica called as I headed for the door. What about Christmas? We haven't even had dessert. I turned back one last time. You know what I learned building my company? Success isn't about money. It's about integrity, vision, and treating people with respect, even when you think they have nothing to offer you. That's a Christmas lesson this family needs to learn. As I walked out into the snowy night, I heard Dad call my name. But I didn't stop. Tomorrow they'd see my face on CNBC, read about me in every financial paper, and finally understand that the daughter they'd dismissed had built an empire. My phone buzzed, a text from my CEO at Morton Industries. Everything's ready for tomorrow. You sure about this? I smiled, typing back, absolutely. Time to show them what nothing looks like. Driving away from my parents' house, I felt lighter somehow. 5 years of hidden success, of quiet power, of watching and waiting, it was all coming to fruition. They'd called me worthless at Christmas dinner, but I'd shown them my true worth. And tomorrow the whole world would know it too. Sometimes the best revenge isn't served cold. It's served with audited financial statements and acquisition papers, wrapped up in a $2.3 billion